help you understand some of the things that we're doing now. One of the key things is the winery itself was owned back in the early 60s by a family called the Gittas, who farmed about 200 acres through the Okanagan and the Similkameen valleys. And for the longest time, the wine we had coming out of the doors and out of the taps were being sold through this tiny little wine shop that we gleefully bulldozed about 2 years ago. And then if we go to the next screen, we can see this is the new location. So just down below the previous location. So wave at me if you can tell me if you've actually been to Mt Boucherie once before or ever before. You got a couple? Excellent. Well, welcome back. So this is the new building we have. So in 2016, we actually went through a transformation. The previous owners sold to the current ownership. It was a gentleman out of Vancouver, and so it's a single owner actually for the winery. But his whole focus is being made to kind of make us, well, definitely to make us a more premium winery. Not necessarily a large winery, but a premium small to medium-sized winery. So this is a picture of the new building. The down below is where actually is where I am currently, and that's the retail shop. The middle level that you see with the glass banisters around it, that's where the restaurant is, called Mt Boucherie. If you're in the area, I definitely recommend making reservations and coming over to see it at the restaurant. They're doing some amazing stuff upstairs. And then just to your left on the screen is where the production facility is, and that's where my office is. Right now we're hot on the presses right now, bringing in Merlot. Today we brought in about, 100 tons of grapes today. So we're going to be busy the next day and a half or so. If you want to, forward to the next one. So I really want to just quickly talk about some of the things that we do. We have holdings of about 200 acres under vine, located throughout locations in the Okanagan and the Similkameen Valley. The first location you're looking at here is actually coming straight from right in front of our winery. This is in West Kelowna. So what you see in the background is actually Mt Boucherie, the peak, or what's left of the peak of Mt Boucherie. It's an old extinct volcano that's kind of eroded away over centuries and centuries, and this is what you see here today. The soil here being, at the base of a volcano is obviously volcanic and very stone and porous stone. The next slide is our probably my favorite vineyard. It's in Okanagan Falls, so just south of us in the south of Penticton is a little town, little appellation called Okanagan Falls, and this is where most of our premium reserve wines are coming from. It's a fantastic little spot. If you're ever driving down the highway through Okanagan Falls, you'll see the rock formation on the the right-hand side of your screen. That's McIntyre Bluff. Absolutely spectacular vistas coming from the vineyards, but McIntyre Bluff itself is really spectacular. I don't have the time to talk about the geology of it, but it's pretty amazing. So this is our next vineyard down the valley. This is actually on the Golden Mile. So in Oliver, there's a section of the vineyards there called the Golden Mile, and that's actually the very premier, the very first sub-appellation in British Columbia. So there's about, I'm going to say there's 6 or 7 wineries on the Golden Mile bench, plus a bunch of other just straight vineyards. This is actually our Rust wine company, which is our sister winery, but this is their home base. But we grow a lot of our premium Zinfandel and Gewürztraminer off this property. Grapes going right back to the early 70s. And then we come to the Similkameen. So this is the Similkameen Valley. If you've never been there, it is a slice of heaven. It is a winding, slow little lazy river going through this valley. and vineyards lining each side. It's literally like going into to Europe and to some of the great wine regions in Europe. And this is our largest holdings of grapes are grown here. We have 2 vineyards that are totaling about 150, about 100 acres in the Similkameen. And most of our grapes are coming out of this vineyard. Super, super hot, deserty climate down there, and really, really cold at nighttime. So you get this major diurnal shift from really hot sun-producing sugars in the grapes. In the evenings, they cool right down like a desert, and it really helps to retain the acidity. So the grapes that come out of there are really balanced and really delicious to taste and to work with as a winemaker. This ugly sod, this is our vineyard manager, Brett Thiessen. I don't know how that slide got stuck in there, but he is a spectacular addition to our property here. Brett is a organic or biodynamic grower, which we brought in this last vintage to change our vineyards, going from conventional farming to more organic and sustainable practices. So Brett's really taken this on. He didn't really know what he was getting into, I don't think, when I first talked to him. When he found out it was 200 acres spread over 2 different valleys and the amount of driving he was going to be doing, it was, I think he's probably regretting it maybe a little bit now, but who knows? But yeah, he's an amazing guy, amazing mind. He carries the same thought process that we do, which is we want to kind of give back to the earth and to soil what we take from it. So for those of you that don't know what organic farming is in comparison to conventional farming in a vineyard, conventional farming uses synthetic fertilizers, synthetic chemicals to control pests and to control different diseases. Whereas organic, we go towards using things that will change the soil or change the plant to not attract those types of pests in our vineyard. And so the whole concept of Brett, if you go through his vineyard, they used to have these beautiful strips of green down the middle, which were grass. And then underneath the vine are strips of dirt that are basically a wasteland. There's nothing, no nutrients, no microbes living in the soils there. It's really kind of, the vine really has to struggle to produce. And in organic farming, they put everything back into the soil to create a sort of a microclimate in the soil. And the organisms that are coming back in the soil now is just unbelievable. You could dig a hole there now and probably pull out 100 earthworms, whereas 2 years ago, you dug down 10 feet and you wouldn't be able to find one. It's quite incredible, the transition, and all that stuff is really, really important towards the styles of wine and the types of wine that I'm making. Excuse me, yeah, if you want to go on to the next, yeah. Here's a picture of grapes coming out of the press. Pardon me. But the style of wine that I like to do is kind of non-intervention. I like to let the grapes sort of do their own thing. We process them most of the time through spontaneous fermentation, which means the grapes are coming in. All of those grapes have wild yeasts that are living in the vineyards and living in those blocks of vines. And those grapes, when they come in a conventional winery, they would be adding a synthetic yeast or a process yeast to take over the fermentation process to make it a more sure thing when it comes to fermentation. With spontaneous fermentations, we're really, the whole focus is to get the yeasts that are naturally on the grapes working to produce the alcohol and to produce really some really interesting flavors that are unique to that site rather than unique to the laboratory that the yeast came from. So that's kind of where we're heading as far as winemaking. the wines themselves, we're already getting into them here, which is awesome because I'm really, really thirsty. My throat's parched.
Can I interrupt for a sec?
Yeah, you may.
Thank you. Chandra has to leave us in a little bit. And so just stepping back quickly to her question about the viticulture, is the transition to certified organic or just organic practices? Is there, you know, I know there's a process, so maybe you just want to speak to that a little bit?
Great question. The idea is not to be certified organic at this point. We've looked more towards organic farming tends to limit everything you can do, and we don't necessarily want to do that at this stage. We want to still be able to. I mean, we are a business that has to make wine and make money. So sometimes with organic practices, they don't really do an amazing job of controlling a particular type of louse, for instance. And so in order to fix that vine so that we don't lose the crop completely, we will occasionally use a synthetic pesticide or addition to the, I shouldn't say pesticide, an addition to the spray program, which will still do the same effect, but it just doesn't nuke the plant and nuke the soil, if you know what I mean. So the organic side of it is we want to really head towards organic practice and sustainable practice. And if down the road we've been doing organic for so long and that's all we're doing, then probably we'll go for certification. But the idea right now is not to go for certification. Hope that answered your question, Cassandra.
Thanks for that, Jeff. I'm chewing a cracker, by the way, so pardon me, my mouth is full.
No problem. How's everybody doing with their wine? Give me a big thumbs up. Excellent, perfect. So the first wine, did anybody have Elderviker in their pick? Excellent. So this is the Elderviker. So Elderviker is a wine that's in our newest line of wines. We just started this particular vintage. It's called the Modest series of wines, and it sounds really kind of funny to think of it as, why are we calling it modest? But the whole concept of the winery itself. So the restaurant is called the Modest Butcher, and there's basically the way we view it as, we want to be very serious and very taken very seriously in the industry and our wines and our food, but we don't necessarily take ourselves seriously, and we want to have a lot of fun. We want to, just kind of just do our jobs and make great wine and great food for you guys. So we're trying as much as possible to just, stay close to our roots and just be humble and be modest. And so this series of wine came out as a wine that we would serve only at the winery, and we'd only serve it in the restaurant. The focus of the wine, the whole line has been that. Now, the wines have been really, really popular. So we've been asked to look quite a bit to have the wines be shipped. Restaurants have been asking to list the wines, and who are we to say no? So we're looking at continuing, for instance, the Elderviker on an ongoing basis year after year. But there's other wines in the line that are going to be a one year only venture. This one has been really popular for us. The Elderviker is a blend of Muscat, Gewürztraminer, Riesling, and Pinot Gris. So those are all the noble grapes of Alsace in France. And they have a wine there called Edelsviker, which is a kind of a farm wine, a house wine, whatever you want to call it. It's just an easy everyday drinking wine. And so this is kind of our homage to that, and we call it the Elderviker. It's kind of a hokey marketing name, not really my choice, but I love the wine. But the wine itself, real fragrant. If you don't have it in front of you, you got to get it. It's really fragrant, really aromatic. It's meant to be a patio sipper. Not meant to be necessarily a wine that you're consuming with meals, although, you know what, I've had it a couple of times with cheeses. I've had it with some whitefish. Whitefish is really nice with it as well. King crab, awesome with this wine as well. I don't really want to talk too much about pairing so much, because I find that everybody likes to drink what they're going to drink with whatever they're going to make. So I'm going to talk about what, kind of recommendations we like, but apart from that, I'll leave that up to you. If you have questions, you can ask. All right. The next wine, the Semillon. So this is another one of my faves too. So these wines are all new to our portfolio at Mt Boucherie. If you've been drinking Mt Boucherie wines for the last couple of years or the last couple of decades, you'll notice the big change. And one of them is the labeling. You can see the label on the screen, but the packaging itself is different. The way we're making the wines are different. In previous, the Semillon that we made, which comes from our Okanagan Falls property, pardon me, the way we used to make it was all tank fermented, which means that there was no oak that the wine saw at all. So what we do actually now is about 45% of the wine goes into barrels, and it's fermented in barrel. And then we take that wine and blend it with the remainder of the wine, which has been fermented in steel. And the wine is still really, really fresh and crisp, but it has all those great little nuances of barrel fermented wines, which are, there's a little bit of butter to it. There's a little bit of caramel and a little more thickness in the flavoring. In the feeling in your mouth. It's more viscous. And that's kind of the style of Australian Semillon, and that's kind of the way that I like Semillon to taste. I'm not a big fan of the austere Semillons, but I like the kind of buttery and rounder Semillons. So that's what this one is. If anybody has that, I'd love to hear your comments. If I'm holding up a wine and we're talking about it, and it's a wine that you're tasting in front of you, feel free to ask a question about it. All right. Blaufränkisch. What the hell is Blaufränkisch? Blaufränkisch is a grape from Austria. So it originates there. It's known by many different names. Lemberger is another very common name for it. Keckfränkisch is another name for it. But it's known by a bunch of names, and we chose the most difficult pronunciation of it to put on our bottle. Why? Because we like to make people pronounce the words. We simply call it Blau here. So this is a wine very similar in style to a Pinot Noir, a really big aged Pinot Noir, and it's got lots of meat to it. It's heavy on blueberries, heavy on kind of floral and spices as well. It's a really great wine to have with food. I drink it all. I taste it all the time with lots of different things, but I really like to enjoy this with dinner. And it's the reason being is it comes from the Similkameen. So in the Similkameen, as I mentioned before, our vineyards there have really, really good heat, which gives us really good sugar and therefore really good alcohol, but also has really great acid. And the acid is what drives this wine and makes that flavor last for a really long time on your palate. So when you're tasting it, you're going to be tasting blueberries, as I mentioned. Maybe not. Maybe you might be tasting wine. That's okay too. But then the wine itself is going to carry on for a long time on your tongue. And I'm actually going to pour a little bit for myself right now because I'm thirsty again, and I'm starting to.
Oh, we don't want you to miss out on the fun.
No. So I'm just going to have a little taste.
And the flavor, yeah.
A little taste of it, yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. Cheers to that. So 20-year-old vines, that's amazing. The foresight to plant Blaufränkisch, Blaufränkisch in Okanagan Valley, like that's thinking way ahead.
Yeah. You know what? The Gitta family who first founded the winery, they did a lot of things that were kind of not great necessarily business-wise. they really kind of overextended themselves. They bought a lot of vineyards and they did a lot of things. But the one thing that they did really well is pick great pieces of dirt. They picked these great little sections of vineyard that they had no idea that they were going to be the best soil types at the time, or now, at the time. And they picked grape varieties that nobody was really growing. You know, Blaufränkisch being one, Zweigelt being another. Planting Gewürztraminer down in the hot South Okanagan. You know, for most people today would say that's crazy. But the fact is, these grapes and the wines that are being produced from them are really long-lived wines, and they're wines that we can really hang our hat on. And Blaufränkisch was a grape that normally would have been used as a coloring grape, would have been used because it's so intensely blue and red that it would be used as a tincturer, it's called. So it's something that would give more color to a grape like Pinot Noir. But we decided that it is so darn delicious on its own that we're going to do it as its own variety. And so that's where Blaufränkisch came from. We've only been producing it now for, I think, 3 years. So it's relatively new as a single varietal in our portfolio. Now, my favorite wine, coming up to PTG. So what is PTG? Everybody look at this. So PTG is a wine called, is from a region in France. Maybe you've heard of it, maybe not, Burgundy. A little sub-region called Beaujolais. I don't know if you've heard of that, but Beaujolais. Their farm wine, the wine that they grow for themselves and they drink locally, is called Passetu Grain, which in French, very loose translation means throw everything in. So what they do is they go to their vineyard and they take all of their grapes that they're growing, which generally speaking are Pinot Noir, Gamay Noir, Pinot Gris. Some people add some Pinot Blanc as well, but those grape varieties are kind of all of the grapes that are allowed to be grown in Burgundy and in Beaujolais. And they take all those grapes in, harvest them. It's called a field blend. So they pick them all from the field, bring them into their winery, and they crush them all together, and then they ferment them all together as one big unit. And that's exactly what we do here. So it's a blend of Pinot Noir, Gamay Noir, and Pinot Gris. We do it in a carbonic maceration method, which means that we ferment the grapes without any contact with oxygen, complete anaerobic environment. And what happens then is you get an intercellular fermentation, meaning that the grapes themselves, they're not having yeast from the outside necessarily starting the fermentation. The actual fermentation